Today is the first in a series of webinars aimed at discussing policy and practice and the development of open science and research data management across the Nordic countries. We'll be starting with Norway today, and the presentations will be in English throughout the series. So today we have speaking for you, Katrine Weisteen Bjerde, who is Special Advisor for Research Services at the Norwegian Directorate for Higher Education Skills. Trond, Kvamme and Trine Klokkerud, who are Senior Advisors at Sikt. And then finally, Leif Longva, who is University Librarian at the Psychology and Law Library, and Tanja Larssen, who is Senior Advisor for Research and Quality in Education at the Arctic University in Norway. And the plan is to address the landscape of research data management and open science in three different perspectives, from top-down perspective in terms of policy, from a perspective roughly equivalent to SND and the SND network, and also perspectives from individual universities and academic sites. So without further ado, I would like to leave the floor to you, Katrine.
Thank you, William. So I'll try and give a sort of high-level perspective from the policy side, what's happening in Norway. I'll talk a little bit about the stakeholders, and I'll talk about the documents, the policy documents and action plans, different things that we have created. And then a little bit concrete about the actions that are sort of in our hands or being directed or facilitated from the central authorities. So first on the stakeholders, there's two main groups of stakeholders. One is the education and research, so higher education area, and the other is the health area. And they're really there's a lot going on when it comes to open science in both of those areas. We do try to coordinate between them. We have a lot of groups where both sectors are present, but we must also admit that sometimes they do go their own ways. And there's always talk about being better at coordinating the two. So, of course, at the ministry level, you have the top level policy making, then the directorates, so where I work, Directorate for Higher Education and Skills, or Klokkerud. We are advising the ministry and we are implementing their policies, and the same goes for the directorates on the health side, where a lot of restructuring is going on at the moment. So that's why I've put also in the Norwegian Institute of Public Health, because they will be getting a bigger role in the near future after New Year. Then we have the service providers. On both sides, we have very significant providers of shared services. So Sikt you will hear from later on, and you have Norwegian Health Network on the health side. And then we have on the higher education side, the universities and the university colleges. And on the health side, we have two levels with the regional health authorities and then the hospitals underneath those. The funding is coming from lots of different places. So, of course, the EU is a big funder. And then within each of the sectors, the Norwegian Research Council is funding really across sectors as well. Whereas the ministry here is giving funding to the regional health authorities, and they on their side are funding projects within the hospitals. Then we have and of course, all the institutions, they are funding their own activities as well from their basic stuff. Then we have the research institutions or research institutes, which is a sort of a loose group of institutions that are, some of them are, well, I'll get back to that. So you have this quite distinct sectoring of the institutions and of the work on open science, but the Ministry of Education and Research has a coordinating role across the sectors. And then when it comes to the research institutes, some of them are owned by a ministry, particularly on the environmental side. And they are large institutions with lots of data and lots of good work on open science. But most of them are legally independent. So the way that the ministries can sort of get their hands around the work they are doing still is because they are all very dependent on funding. They have just a little bit of basic funding, and then the rest is comes from the Research Council or EU or other areas. So they are very dependent on following the policies and the guidelines that come from there. So the documents that we are following at the moment, there's been a major shift, because earlier on we had specific strategies only for open science, whereas during the last couple of years, open science has been implemented in the sort of more general policy documents and strategy documents. So for instance, we have for many years we've released long-term plans for research and higher education, and just during the last one, open science and fair data has really had a significant position. So the ministry is saying now we think this is how we want to do it in the future, rather than having the specialized documents. So this is published by the Ministry of Education and Research. There's a whole chapter in here that is about research and open research, about only open research. It's partly about open access to publications and partly about data, and making it very clear the value that they put on data and the importance of handling those data well. And then the third area is within open science is the importance of infrastructure to support the work. So the last time we had a strategy for open publishing, that stated that all articles were to be open within 2024, within the end of 2024. And we all see now that that is not going to happen. Even if we are far ahead, we're at about 80%. So one of the actions here is to ask the institutions, the Directorate and the Research Council, in cooperation with the institutions, to develop a new strategy for scientific publication. And it now says strategy for scientific publication, not strategy for open access. On the data side, the long-term plan says that they intend to follow the recommendations of a working group that I'll get back to later on. And on the infrastructure side, there's nothing much new. There's a lot going on in Norway. Maybe some of the others will talk more about that. Then, as a result of that long-term strategy, we have a strategy for the digital transformation in higher education. That is also produced by the ministry. Our Directorate made the sort of basic sketch for it in cooperation with the institutions, but it's the ministry that finalized the work and made quite a lot of changes. It's clearly their document. And this is just some of the things that that strategy says. So open research, and an area they call open research and new research possibilities, for instance, on AI. That's one of the 6 strategic areas in the strategy. and that they state that data must be fair. We must achieve upskilling on open research. We must further develop the digital platforms for both open publishing and data. We need to work on reforming research evaluation or research assessment, and further develop the tools around the data infrastructures. Then I wanted to mention some of the overall more high-level documents that we also are following at the moment. 2 or 3 years ago, we had a working group led by the Research Council that produced some recommendations on how to share research data on licensing of research data. And then 1 year after that, from the Directorate and from Sikt, we created sort of status and recommendations for further work connected to fair research data. That was also done in close cooperation with the institutions. We had a group of representatives from the institutions, and that the work was led by one of the people from the institutions. So that has a long list of recommendations, and the same goes for another work group, again led by the Research Council, where they were looking, that was directed at the ministry, and giving recommendations to the ministry on how they ought to invest in infrastructures to support fair research data, and particularly relevant public data for research. So those are still very much alive and being used. So when we get down to the real more operational actions that we're doing at the moment, the strategy for scientific publication after 2024 is about to be launched. That will happen in the mid-December. Then we did go in as partners in Skills for EOSC to handle one of the other tasks, which was upskilling in open science. There's also a lot on this going on in the different institutions. And then one of the action points is to go through, so the last two reports on infrastructure and fair data. There's a huge list of recommendations there, and we need to go through that and prioritize and find out what do we really want to implement. And then there was a project trying to find a common ground and make central registries for research administrative information, like information on people, on projects, on organizations, on trying to make one central registry, but so far that has not been given priority. This has so far been planned as being funded by the institutions, and they haven't given it. So they've said, no, that's not the most important thing for us to do yet. So just a few other things that are not directly part of this action plan, but that have been going on for several years. One is the sort of standard agreements with the publishers. That is moving more and more from subscription to agreements on open publishing and agreements on the publish and read agreements. And then we have a special arrangement in Norway where, so the Directorate where I work, we're responsible for funding mechanism for journals, particularly within social science and humanities, that are published in Norwegian, or the majority of the articles are in Norwegian. And I just mentioned the RDA in Norway, where we have a national node of RDA that's very active and working very well. Trond might say something more about that. And then, of course, we are members of EOSC, and more of the institutions are joining. And then the institutions and Sikt will say more about what they are doing. And that was, I am there.
Thank you, Katrine. That was very informative, and I wonder if there is anyone in the audience that would want to ask any questions or make any comments for Katrine to answer.
Maybe we can also, okay. Yeah, I mean, you can also ask questions at the end if there's, if you think of something during the other presentations.
Yes, absolutely. Rosa.
Yes, Katrine, how do you see the creation of national policies and the creation of institutional policies? You seem to have a top-bottom approach in Norway, or has it actually been the other way around, that you've based the national policies on local policies from the universities, or how was the policy making done?
I would invite the others to also comment on that if they want to, the people from Sikt and from the institutions. But I think in Norway that there's a very strong support from the ministries and a very strong top-down sort of push to have open access, open data, fair data. But I think all the policies, I think we can say that all the policies have been developed with active participation from the institutions, and that the work has been just as much initiated from the institutions as from the top level. But that's my impression. At the moment now, I only presented the top level, top down version of it. So it would be good to have comments from the others as well. Do you feel it's being very top down, or do you feel that the institutions have been a part of it?
I would agree with a bit. Yeah, it is a bit top heavy, and also, but the larger institution has also taken lead. I would say University of Oslo, many look to them when they write their own policies or guidelines. So that is, I would say, a different second level top heaviness, if you will. But yeah, mainly top heavy, but maybe the Arctic University has a different view. I see Tanja has her hand raised.
I can just comment that at our university in Tromsø, I think it's a mixed approach. Some of it is top heavy, but of course it's very nice to have the support, to know that you have a support from the ministry, and that what you are implementing at your own institution has some support. And I'm going to talk about our rights retention strategy, mainly from our institution, and that was not a top-down approach. That was something the university initiated themselves, and then we might have had some sort of underhand support or no objections from ministry level, but I think it's mixed.
Well, okay. I would like to invite Trond and Trine to start their presentation on the role of Sikt.
So my name is Trond Kvamme, and I work at Sikt with Trine Pernille, my colleague. Sikt is the Norwegian Agency for Shared Services in Education and Research. We work at the section for research data, and we will talk a little bit about our services and outreach strategy. So yeah, a little bit about Sikt. It's a rather new organizational structure. Was established in 2022 through a merger between mainly three institutions, NSD, Norwegian Center for Research Data. That is where I both me and Trine have our background from. And also it was Uninet and UNIT, the Norwegian Directorate for Joint Services in Higher Education and Research, parts of it. So we are now a public administrative body under the Ministry of Education and Research, and we have approximately 400 employees distributed around 3 offices. Main office is in Trondheim, with offices also in Bergen, where me and Trine is located, and also in Oslo. So yeah, Sigma 2 here is also a Norwegian infrastructure service provider, which is now a daughter company under Sikt. So our mission, as defined in the allocation letter, since we are now owned by the Ministry of Education and Research, they have defined our main goals in the annual allocation letter. So the goal number 1 is to provide the sector with access to infrastructure, high quality shared services. It's also to facilitate for research innovation and to create value through more data sharing. At the same time as providing robust information security services and good privacy practices in the knowledge sector. Knowledge sector being higher education and research. Oh, sorry. So basically, this means also then, especially under goal number 2, it's to share data easily is one of the main issues under goal number 2. So a little bit about policies, guidelines, and directives that sort of supports our services. There's, in addition to all the policies and documents that Katrine has mentioned, there's also this national strategy on access to and sharing of research data, where there are three fundamental principles defined. One of them is that research data should be as open as possible and as closed as necessary. There's also a principle about research data should be managed and arranged in a way that maximizes the value of data. And there's also a principle about the decisions on the archiving and preparation of research data, that these decisions should be made within the research communities. So this last point means basically that a lot of institutions have, the larger institutions have resources and possibilities to provide resources for their researchers to make these decisions, while other institutions do not. So then they look to other national providers, maybe like Sikt, in providing tools and services that can help them make these decisions. Yeah, so also one of the other things that is mentioned in this policy or strategy is that this means, among other things, that data must be equipped with good metadata, with a license that makes it clear how the data can or cannot be used, and that research data should be made available at the lowest possible costs and on equal terms for all user groups that meet the criteria for access. So again, this pushing towards sharing as open as possible. And there's also the Research Council of Norway have policies on open data and open science, again reflecting the national strategy. It states that the research data should be stored, archived securely, and that it should be made available for further use and at an early stage. And again, as I mentioned earlier, equipped with standardized metadata if possible, and also made available at the lowest possible cost. And finally, that the management of research data should be described in a data management plan. And of course, these points are again inspired by guidelines and requirements coming out of the European Union, Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, which of course also makes a basis for many of the services that we provide. Just want to briefly mention some other protocols, if you will, guidelines, standards, influences that that we build our services on. There's this FAIR report that came a couple of years ago, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, Turning FAIR into Reality, which was a report coming out of the European Commission expert group on fair data, where they want to build this fair data ecosystem where our data management plan sort of provides a hub of information of all digital objects, and there are policies, there are PIDs, PIDs for everything in this system, standards defining how to describe fair digital objects or the research data, if you will, and there's all the stakeholders acting in this ecosystem. So this has been an inspiration to sort of try to build a national ecosystem for fair data objects. So of course the FAIR principles, which is the basis of this report, Turning FAIR into Reality. So making data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. It also is the basis of how we think about and develop our services. In the archive, we also look at the Open Archival Information System model. That is the basis of our archive. And we use the DDI metadata standard coming out of the Data Documentation Initiative, which is originally a metadata standard from the social sciences, but is now developed into a metadata standard that can be used for many research disciplines. And of course, we have had the Culture Seal for many years. At the moment, it's expired, but we are working on renewing our Culture Seal certifications to make sure that we remain relevant and trustworthy towards our users. And again, documenting. An important part of the Culture Seal certification is to have good policies, good descriptions of procedures and practices in the archive. So I'm going to move on to the services we provide. We are organized in sort of divisions, and in the divisions we have sections, and under the sections we have product area. So services I'm going to present to you today are in the product area of data management. So this is us, a lot of people working on many different things. So yeah, we have this, we like to think about our data in the data management life cycle. So we have services in providing services for many areas in this life cycle. In the early phase, we have the data management plan tool, Sikt DMP, which is available for our users. We also have data protection services. That's their own product area, but it's closely related to data management planning, planning for handling personal data in a research project, making your data GDPR compliant. And we have the Sikt Research Data Archive, which provide long-term archive solutions, mostly focusing on social science and humanities data. And then we have a data distribution service. One of the most important, or the biggest one we have, is the Surveybanken in Norwegian, which is a large collection of national, international social science surveys. So I'll mostly now talk about these data provision services we have. So, like I said, server bank is one of them. This is a large database that makes data more accessible for researchers, students, and the general public. You can search through all variables across data sets in all our collections, and we also have this visualization tools with background variables and some basic online analysis tools. We also have the European Social Science Survey, European Social Survey, where we have the data portal. So this is pan-European research infrastructure, providing data for our designated community. So this is one of our most used data sets with over 1.4 million downloads in total, and has made the basis of over 9,000 publications. So there's also some visualization tools using the same sort of data platform as in the survey bank, where you can map data in geographically and also visualizing in other ways as shown here. We also have the Nordlag study, Norwegian Life Course Aging and Generation study, which is a multidisciplinary longitudinal study on well-being, health, work, care, and family relations in the second half of life, which have their own portal where you can download and view data. And these are data collections carried out by Statistics Norway in collaboration with a research institution called Nova. So this is also a much used database. In addition to that, we have data collection on the Norwegian society with data on regions, institutions, the commune database or the municipality database. There's the public administration database, data about the political system, and central administration surveys, and in addition to some statistics about churches. And we're also hosting and arranging the school election data. And some of these are on older platforms, which we are now carrying out a new internal project where we try to modernize several of these databases. So that was briefly about Sikt and our data sharing services. And now I think Trine will take the next part about our outreach and collaboration strategies. Services.
My voice is a bit not at its best today, but hopefully it will go okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about outreach and collaboration and how we work with the research communities and universities, and how we prioritize and make strategies at Sikt. Since we are part of the Ministry of Education and Research, we also have a very formal line of decision making. So just we also have our own internal policies, which is currently a work in progress. Since we became Sikt, since we are a totally new organization with new structures, we also had to make new policies, and hopefully these policies will be in place around Christmas, hopefully before, but I know things always take more time than we think. So, but it's a policy for data collection development and one for long-term preservation. And we also have a strategy for 24-26 for our services and products, and also competency developments. And the strategy has to be in accordance with both the national strategies and also the strategies of Sikt and others. So, And to do this, we have a very formal line of decision making. And so we are here at Sikt. This model is called samstyringsmodellen, very loosely translated to the co-management model. So, and this model is established by the ministry, and it's there to ensure that we have user participation in everything we do at Sikt. So when we get an idea at Sikt, and of course we have our leadership with us, we also have to consult a product advisory group, which it's currently, the letter is going out to the institutions this week, and will consist of about 6 to 8 people with competency within our field, in our product area, and will help us to decide what to prioritize, also comment on our budget, etc. And when we are, if we are going to develop bigger things that are not within our current budget, we have to take this up the portfolio management board, and they manage the portfolio of different product areas. So we have a portfolio management board within the field of research, which we relate to. And they also help us decide what to prioritize, and what the need of the user and research communities are. And at the top level, we have, it's called digitaliseringsstyret, so loosely translated board for digitalization, which is Håkon, where Katrine is from, who is the secretary for this board. And that's a very top-heavy board, which have like the main strategy for what Sikt is supposed to do. So, and of course, in reality, it doesn't really work as easy as you can see on the paper here. It's an idea started and it goes up to the portfolio board and then down again, and yeah. So, but and this is quite new to us as well. So we are working on trying to figure out how to make this work in a good way. But one of the main points with this model is to ensure user involvement on all levels, both at the institution and research and other within the research communities. So, but most of the collaboration we do is the informal collaboration, and within some of these are also more formal. But of course, we are present in networks, meetings, we talk to educators, we are part of projects, and we get, of course, inquiries from the universities, from research support, from researchers who want to archive and share the data. And here I think we learn the most about is when we have to say no, because what they ask us tell us also about the need they have. And we also, of course, talk a lot to research support at the university, which is very helpful for us because especially the big universities, they are massive and it's difficult to get in touch with the researcher and talk to them when you're on the outside. So we need the help at the universities. Of course, the researchers, and even this rarely happens, but even the odd phone call usually comes to Trond, who is out and talking to people about data management all the time. So I'm just going to show this. This is Surveybanken, and this is actually a project that originated from a specific user need, because the Oslo Met, Metropolitan University in Oslo, they contacted us because they needed somewhere to share the data, research data. And they didn't want to develop something for themselves. So they asked us if we were interested in doing something with them. And out of this idea and this contact, we got Surveybanken, which is now our main data portal for the research data we have in our Norwegian archive. And it was released in April 23. And the visualization and the basic analysis tools, which you can see in Surveybanken, is closely developed with people from Oslo Met, researchers, and also with we have a lot of user cases to make this, which also means that it is very in accordance with the needs of the students and researchers. And the whole point that they wanted to have somewhere to show their data and make data easily accessible also to the general public and students. So we don't have to download a data set and open Stata or SPSS in order to look at the data. So, and of course, we have a lot of international collaboration, which is the basis of all we do, because there's the field of research data archive is not that big in Norway. So we need, I know especially at SND, we worked a lot with you. So, and it's the Research Data Alliance. We are very involved in the DDI, and also we are the national service provider for CESTA. And of course, we have EOSC Future is a project we are currently involved in. So a lot of interesting stuff going on. But we have some challenges. We've just recently, this last year, started working with outreach more systematically and to make this work. And the major challenge is how to reach our end users or the researchers, because what we want is we want people to share the research data, which is not always that easy. And to make this happen, we need more close collaborations with our users in both the institutional level and the research support and also the researchers in order to increase the proportion of data archived and shared. And one of the things we really want to do, but we still can't do, is how to measure impact. Basically, we try to send our DOIs through the data citation tools, but we don't get a lot of hits, and we know they are being used, so we need to find out why. And there's a current project just started, Open Trails. So hopefully we will find out something through there. You can of course measure how many data sets are ordered from us, but not where they're used. And of course, there's always issues with resources, because we don't have unlimited resources, so we have to prioritize. And yeah, also outreach requires resources, and also development requires resources. So we have to know what to do and when to do it. And of course, a lot of our development is funded by a project funding. So, and it's also difficult after the project has ended to sustain continuous development of our services. So, and I know that's issue many infrastructures have. So just to sum up our experience so far, we're quite, we started working actively with this for maybe about a year ago. So, but the informal collaboration is the most important to get feedback and ideas and really know the needs of in the research communities. But in order to be able to implement and know what to develop, we need a systematic collaboration on an institutional level. So, and this is very important also to get people to archive more research data. I think it's very important to be present at seminars, conferences, meetings, etc. Be out there when we can. And also don't be afraid to ask for critical feedback. I know it's the same, at least at us, for example, when we spend a lot of energy and hours and idealism to develop good services, and then ask the people to be critical towards them. But we need it in order to develop services that are good and user-friendly. Of course, good arenas for discussions. And all this you need to do with a systematic approach. You have to have a good you have to have an idea behind all of it and a good strategy in order to make the best of it. So I think the main part is to build systems for collaboration that is sustainable and not dependent on one single person doing the job. So, and I'm just ending with Trond's quote here, that we can't just respond to the needs and shifting demands. We have to strive to evolve with it. So that was my input for the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trine and Trond. That was a very informative, very thorough presentation for everyone here. I wondered if there was anyone that would like to follow that with any comments or questions, particularly people here in the SND office, whether they had anything, shared experiences perhaps that might be interesting to comment or ask questions about. Yes, Rosa.
I just want to thank for that really interesting talk on the importance of both. I mean, you have a formal structure for management, and then you also have informal networks for collaboration, and you stress that both are actually important in a way, which seems to be a general experience, I think. But I also wonder, how is it with Sikt? What business model does it have? I mean, the services you provide, is it for free for universities, or do the universities pay for it? What's the cost coverage model for Sikt?
It differs. The research data archive is currently free of charge. We will never take any money for the ordering the data and sharing it. But there is a discussion whether we should at some point in the future be paid for some of the services, but this is still under development. But I know other parts of Sikt who delivers like internet services or other big systems, and the institutions have to pay for it. But of course, they think it's also a bit expensive, and we think it's more important that people share the data than that we get more money. So we try to do it with the basic funding we have so far. And our development is mainly funded through projects funded by the Research Council or other parts. Yeah.
Yes, Leif.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to ask about this project you mentioned, Trine, the Open Trail project. Is that a Sikt project, or is it a bigger project? What project is it? I haven't heard about it, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's quite new. It's actually open. It's open air. You have the project, and the Sikt is participating in a small work package. So. And that's both open science people at Sikt who is running it, and we are involved in something with the data management plan. So we are not very, we're just like have a small part in it. So, but it's very new. it just got funded just a few months ago. So.
David, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if you have a feeling for why your data doesn't turn up in citations. I guess we also have this question, I don't issues, but when it's cited, but why is it not? No one uses the DOI. Why is this?
I know we had the same discussion many times, and yeah, our only qualified guessing is that they don't use the DOI, right? So we don't find it as we do when, you know, normal citation and publication. So, but yeah, and also maybe I think maybe we need some incentives in order to get people to cite their research data. But I know this is a very this is a minefield when discussing this with different researchers. So, yeah.
Thank you.
If there is no more questions, perhaps it would be good to thank Trond or Trine, and then move on to the final part of the webinar with Tanja and Leif at the Arctic University in Norway.
Yeah, my name is Tanja Larssen, and I'm a senior advisor on open science at the Central Administration at UiT, the Arctic University of Norway. And my presentation is going to be mainly on open science policies, primarily on open access to scholarly publications, and then a focus on the introduction of an institutional rights retention strategy at UiT. But at the end, I will give a short introduction to UiT's principles on management of open of research data. And Leif, I know, is going to talk more about research data. So stay tuned if that's what you're most interested in. So for now, University of Tromsø have several separate policies regarding different elements under the open science or umbrella. And so far, we have policies regarding different research outputs within open access, research data, educational resources. And we also have open science integrated to some degree as a part of UiT's action plan on innovation. We are currently working on an overreaching open science policy with a special focus on some elements such as career assessment, research data and publication, open education, innovation to a larger degree, and also citizen science or science and society. And we hope to have this policy document approved at university before the end of this year, hopefully, and that this overreaching policy could be a starting point for further work on more detailed policy documents and also action plans within the different fields. So I'm not going to talk now a lot about Plan S. It's just some background that I believe is to some degree relevant for the implementation of a rights retention strategy at UiT. So as I guess most of us know, in 2018, a coalition of European research funders, Coalition S, launched the initiative known as Plan S. And there are many things to say about this and some potential issues. Experiences where publishers refuse manuscript that has Plan S funding. There's instances where researchers have been asked to resubmit without the prior notice to publishers. And of course, it's just to some degree, but also all the research that does not stem from Plan S funding, how to make that openly available. So a little background there. So what is an institutional rights retention strategy then? In short, it's where full text versions of peer-reviewed articles can be made available without embargo by means of self-archiving and regardless of any restrictions from publishers. At UiT, we found inspirations from other universities, where several universities in the US, one of them being Harvard, have had institutional RRS, rights retention strategies for several years. And in 2021, at least, there were introduced similar strategies to 82 institutions worldwide. We look to the Harvard policies that states that prior notice to publishers is provided through the institution's policy on their website, not through individual researchers having to inform their publishers about this, and that also researchers can apply for exceptions from this rule or this policy. So in Norway, as we have already heard, the Norwegian government states that all publicly funded Norwegian research articles should be open access by 2024. Of course, the issues in getting to that goal. And at UiT, we have the policy that all academic publications are to be made openly accessible in open access journals or in our open repository, which also is a hard goal to reach. So in 2020, the library director at UiT established a working group to work on the institution's principle for open access to scientific publications. And one of these working groups' recommendations was actually that UiT should introduce a rights retention strategy based on the same model as Harvard's policy. And the proposal was supported by UiT's Research Strategic Committee and the Directorate. And in 2021, UiT was the first in Norway to implement a new university and institutional rights retention strategy. So what does this policy entail at UiT? As I mentioned, full text copies of scientific articles written by employees and students at UiT can be made openly available regardless of publication channel, through self-archiving or green open access and without any embargo. And this is regardless of any restrictions from the publishers. And we as Harvard provide prior notice to publishers through our websites and our policy. And researchers who do not have requirements from external funders or Coalition S funders can ask to be accept from this rule, and they will get it granted. But if you do not apply for an exemption, you will give permission to make a full text version available under a Creative Commons license. So just an illustration of how does this work in practice. How do UiT's researchers comply with this RRS? So this is just an info poster for a self-archiving campaign from the university library here at UiT. And it's directed at researchers and to explain what needs to be done to comply with UiT's policy. So some background information here. It mentioned something called Kristin and our research archive. And Norway has a national CRIS system, current research information system, called currently Kristin, for registration of research projects and results. And UiT, we have an open institutional research archive called Munin. And I'm saying for now because this is changing next year, actually. I'm not going to say too much about it, but this is the situation for now. So if an article is published open access through the gold open access route, you can make a full text version of the publisher's version or version of record available. And if you have published in a subscription journal where you can't make that version publicly available, you will use your latest peer-reviewed manuscript or author's accepted manuscript or postprint available. And with our rights retention strategy, you ensure that researchers can make them available regardless of where they publish. And in addition to the University of Tromsø, there are several other institutions in Norway who have implemented their own institutional rights retention strategy. So all the other, there's been a lot of talk about larger or bigger universities. It's the comprehensive universities in which University of Tromsø is one of them. and all the others, University of Oslo, University of Bergen, and the Norwegian University of Science and Technology in Trondheim has also implemented this, alongside other universities, a university college, and so far as I know, one research institute. But there is talk about more being on the way. And in Norway, as you heard from Katrine, there's a working group on behalf of the Norwegian government that has now presented a strategy for Norwegian scientific publishing after 2024. And in this strategy, it's also, they recommend institutions to implement institutional rights retention strategies, and also that the government should explore the possibilities of having a national rights retention strategy, as we have seen in other European countries. So things are on the way. Yes, and I'm nearing the end of my presentation, and I just want to give a short introduction to UIT's policies on research data. And we have signed many different declarations, the DOOR declarations on research assessment, and the agreement on reform of research assessment, and we are also a member of QARA, the Coalition on Reform of Research Assessment. And it's just to illustrate that UIT is committed to considering data sets as an independent research contribution that should be included in research evaluation and in career guidance. And that's some of the background. The FAIR principles also form a basis for UIT's management of research data, and we recommend looking to the CARE principles for handling research data on people in society. And UIT also endorses the principle for managing research data that has been mentioned by Sikt, the open as standard and as open as possible, as close as necessary. That was also EU, the Norwegian Research Council, and the ministry endorses. Highlighting a few details from our policy, and just to say what it says about ownership of data, availability, and licenses. And as a general rule, UIT has the right to take ownership and right of use of research data generated by its employees. And there are exceptions to this, but that's the general rule. And regarding availability, researchers should make research data openly available, providing that there are no legal, ethical, security, or commercial reasons for not doing so. And data must be archived either at the researcher's own institution here at UIT or any other suitable and reliable archive. When it comes to licensing, UIT's policy states that research data should be equipped with licenses for access and redistribution, and the license should be one that is internationally recognized and place as few restrictions as possible on the research data. And that was all from me. Thank you very much. Now Leif can take over.
Yeah, fine. So my name is Leif Longva. I'm at the library at the UIT, the Arctic University of Norway. I'm in the team for publishing and research support, and that's also where the research data management services are being located for the library on the library side. So I will give a very brief status on the uptake of open science, so to speak. Here is an illustration of a research project timeline with all the elements of all the process going on in a research project. And the green line here is illustrating what we like to see, the situation where as much as possible is made openly available and as fair as possible from the planning stage onwards, and all along to the end where the publishing takes place. Like Katrine mentioned, we have come quite far on open access publishing in Norway, and we're working hard on the data side, data and code archiving. Still got a long way to go there. There are other elements like you can see here in an open science picture, like the pre-registration of what you intend to do in a project, preprint deposits, open peer review, preprint peer review. On these issues, we have still a long way to go. Here's a quick glance at open access publishing. We've reached, for 2022, we reached 78% open access journal articles in various forms. This was by the counting in the spring. Yellow color is gold open access, green is green open access, the dark yellow is hybrid open access, while the brown one is the transferable agreements. That's been important, has made a big proportion of open access publishing the latest years. In the bottom with the blue or turquoise color is the diamond open access, and as you can see, it hasn't really taken off. Seems to be stable on around 1,300. Okay, these numbers will continue to rise because there are embargoes that will expire, meaning that more articles will be made open access, and also there are researchers that are late in submitting their articles, so the numbers will raise. So the percentage of 78% will likely grow a little bit as years go. What about research data? UiT, the Arctic University of Norway, launched its data repository back in the fall of 2016 using the software of Dataverse. And then in 2017, we developed this into the service called Dataverse NO, where we invited other universities, higher education institutions, and research institutes to join us as partners. And a few have done so. We are now in total 14 partners in the Dataverse NO. Being a partner means that every research data set needs to comply with the quality requirements. We are proud to be certified as Cortrust C, like Trond also mentioned, for their repository. And in order to maintain this seal, we need to comply with the requirements on quality of the data set, but also quality of the service. So every data set is curated to ensure the quality of the metadata, the quality of the data, how the data are organized, and that data files are in preferred formats, and that the data sets are good described in a README file and so on. And this is how it looks if a data set is submitted for review. In order to be published, a data set needs to be submitted for review, get this tag saying in review, and then a curator, one or more curators at the actual university or institution will go through the data set and look for to see if there are improvements that should be done before it's published. So there may be communication between the curator and the author before before the curator is satisfied. So publishing is done by the curator. Here's a data set that is not yet submitted for review. So authors, researchers may create a draft of their data set and then keep working on it until they are satisfied and click submit for review. So a little look at the figures. There are now 1,466 data sets in Dataverse NO in total, combining from the 14 partner institutions. So not a huge number of data sets, but still. We can also see that 2019 was the richest year in terms of new data sets. The 2019 and also 2021 was years where we did some bulk uploading of historical data sets. We can't, it's not impressively growth, we must admit that. So there is still a job to be done. There is still lots of data sets. There's a lot of research data that's not being archived as they should. So here are the 14 partners of Dataverse NO. Two more institutions have announced that they would like to join us as partners, making the number 16 if it's realized, and that will mean that there's only one university, only one Norwegian university not being a partner in Dataverse NO. That's the University of Southeastern Norway, and they are actually using Figshare as their institutional repository. And each institution is, of course, free to choose where how to organize their research data services and which repository to point to. And each researcher too is free to deposit their research data where they find it more appropriate. So it may be that there are subject-specific data repositories out there that are more suited for their needs. So Dataverse NO is a catch-all service for any subject areas, and yeah. Dataverse NO is more than an archive, it's a community of practice. We have a user forum of curators and the managers, and we have a few channels where we communicate with each other. We have a status meeting twice a year. Most commonly online, but we would like to see more getting together physically sometimes. That's very nice. We also have a curator forum in Teams, so we meet once a month discussing in Teams bigger or smaller issues related to curation. And there is also a discussion forum where you may write your questions and comments and get a discussion thread on some issue. So no issue is too small to be raised, no issue is too big. The importance of this is to get a common quality level of the service, to maintain this seal, this core-trust seal. We need to make sure that all the partners have the same, are practicing the same level of quality in their curation. Dataverse NO is also staging webinars and workshops for the trainers. So this is to enhance the quality of the service, training the trainers on different issues. Dataverse NO is very much a service for the long tail of research. So the bigger projects may have their own infrastructure on how to do research data management, including archiving. This is one example, the Elixir infrastructure. It's an European life science infrastructure with nodes in 23 countries. Really big infrastructure, so they serve their own needs on the research data management, and the Dataverse NO is more the goal is more on the smaller research projects. Okay, advocating and educating is a very important element in this. So here's an overview of some of the webinars that are run this fall, announced in openscience.no. So as you can see, there are webinars organized by several of the universities, several higher education institutions are running their webinars or courses on research data management and other issues. And since these are webinars, anyone can attend. You don't have to be a member of the University of Bergen to attend a University of Bergen course. So we're helping each other in opening these webinars for each other. There is a network of data curators in the making. It will be launched during the next half year. The goal of this is to collectively raise the quality of data curation in Norway and to cooperate in curation questions. So this is a project financed by the National Library in Norway, this network of curators will of course need to work together with the Dataverse NO and not duplicate any effort, so they will find their place. This network will of course have a larger scope than Dataverse NO members, so any institution can be a member, don't have to not limited to Dataverse NO. Okay, one little word on pre-registrations. To my knowledge, University of Oslo is the only institution running a course on how to pre-register research studies. This is something I would love to see more activity on. It's a very interesting direction to pre-register your research, and there is a network, Norwegian or Norway's reproducibility network, that is working on issues like this. So it's very exciting to see a development in this direction. Okay, finally, one word about the educational resources. There is a service up and running called the DLR, Digital Learning Resources. This is a national service for all institutions, higher education institutions in Norway. It's not very impressively loaded with resources, 1,657 by now. But it's up to the individual institution to make sure that this is being used, because digital educational resources is also an important element of open science. So that was my little status. There is still a way to go. We still have some jobs to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Leif. Thank you, Tanja. I would like to open the floor for any questions or comments. Tanja.
Ask my own questions. No, I was just going to mention that UIT is also a member of EOSC and are offering some services on those platforms. So, for a comment from me.
I might be interested in asking if there is any activity on pre-registrations. Do you use Open Science Framework in Sweden? So is there any activity on that in Sweden? Preprints, submitting postings. Because I think that's a very exciting thing to develop the open science services, to use these services that you find in Open Science Framework.
Yeah, Katrine, you got your hand raised.
Yeah, not to answer that question, so but just thought I'd mention that for instance, the curator network that Leif was mentioning, we're working together with the other partners and Skills for EOSC to connect these through Skills for EOSC, and that I've just wanted to state our support for the start of the Nordic cooperation between, well, it's not a start, it's a continuation, it's been going on for years, but through Skills for Yosk also that we're trying to strengthen the Nordic cooperation. So that would be interesting to continue.
I think with that, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone for being involved, to the speakers and to the audience for joining us. Thank you very much for today.